大丈夫。
え？
僕は男女平等に扱うから。
Inside for clothes that Tristan.
Women. I don't know what her problem is.
This episode is brought to you by Brondu the Thirst Mutilator. Also brought to you by the Crimson Permanent Assurance.
What? Huh?
What?
Is that time again? It's podcast time. What was that joke? I did it like episode 1 or 2. It's like feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme. Hey everybody, it's podcast time. And we're hearing Jason's family in the background, apparently.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be quiet in a minute.
Or we could just have commentary. It'll be like audience commentary. Well, everybody, it's that time again. Welcome to our neighborhood. How we doing, neighbors?
Not bad.
Real good neighbor.
Jason, what's been going on?
I watched the first 3 episodes of X-Men 97.
You've done your duty, I see.
Yeah.
I also played.
I also played a little bit of Island of Illusion. It's a Disney game that was put on the Switch. It was actually pretty fun. I enjoy playing as Donald Duck. He's been my favorite Disney character for a long time.
Well, look who it is.
He's my favorite Disney character. I love Donald.
Donald Duck is your favorite Disney?
Yes. You never knew this about me?
Goofy. He's like pure chaos. I don't... Stuff happens. He survives. He's like the god of luck.
Goofy is a strong second for me. I loved watching like Goof Troop and all the Goofy cartoons that came out years and years ago. The Goof Troop movies were awesome. But Donald Duck has always been my favorite.
If you were to choose a gladiator to fight to the death in an arena of Disney characters, who would you bring? Because I don't think you can defeat Goofy because he...
No, you can't.
he somehow avoids all damage.
Too strong.
Whereas Donald Duck will take damage.
Right, but he'll go berserk mode on everybody.
Oh yeah, when he turns into the red duck, you don't stand a chance.
Or Scrooge McDuck, power of money.
Yeah. Goofy may take damage, but it's not enough to put him down ever.
Well, he never goes down.
No. He just kind of he may get a little bit of punishment there, but he always shakes it off, and it's never bad enough that it would have put him down. So yeah, Goofy probably would win.
I do see our boy in the chat. I've been wondering if Chance has been around. Usually gives me comments during the week, but we lost our dedicated viewer, I guess.
Oh no. Already.
Silver, what's been going on? Champ.
School. Nothing new, really. I did tell you about my pencil breaking, making it so I couldn't do stuff.
Well, I told you needed to cast your cat out, and then it turned into a conversation about whether or not you would kill your cat to survive, and you said no. And I was disappointed because you have no survival instinct. You're unwilling to kill one of your animals to make it through. What did I say?
Yeah,
what if you could chop off one part of it and keep it alive? Would you still do that?
Oh. Yeah, and I said, like, oh, I wouldn't want to suffer, and you're like, that's a bonus.
It's a perk.
Maybe it's a perk.
Yeah, it is a perk. Other than that, goodness, I watched some anime and so much Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Just
Yay.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth perpetually, to the point where I did beat it, and I'm on my way to getting platinum on it. And there's so much I could say, depending on whether or not I should say it. It's a trip. It's a big game, and a lot happens. Chance says, Crapsman Heptic Dog. I spent last week at the armpit of the vacation world, Branson, Missouri, where old country stars go to die. They wish they could die in Branson, Missouri. Branson, Missouri is like limbo. It's the torture chamber of the South. Congratulations, though, on your poor vacation.
Yeah,
that willing?
What could have?
I don't.
If Branson is the armpit of the vacation world, what on earth were you there for?
The smell? Taking in deep whiffs, enjoying the scent, the musk, if you will.
So potent, it gets your neurons flared. Like, ah.
Deeply potent musk of Branson, Missouri. Take it in deep. Good Lord, is there a lot to talk about? One might ask a question: where is old Ross? I don't know. He was going to go.
We might ask
go out of town. Well, he was going to go out of town this weekend, and then he said he didn't need to. So I assumed he would be here, but then he's not. So maybe he is out of town? Question mark?
Yeah, maybe.
Perhaps. Or he's asleep and will just stumble drunkenly in late, as he often wants to do. We do have an absurd amount of things to talk about. An absurd amount of things to talk about, and too little time to do it. Oh yeah, we do have silver.
Yeah.
I need to remember to use it. I built that. I put it together for you. Or no, I recorded the historical evidence. Smelling up those rich Branson pheromones. Yeah, well. Take a deep whiff. Inhale. Like I said, we have an absurd amount of things to talk about. Just when you thought Gamergate 2.0 was over, just when you thought we could no longer talk about the topic, it keeps escalating every week. Part of me is a little tired of talking about it. Not because it's not a topic it's not worth talking about, but partially because look,
it should have gone away and died.
It should have gone away and died. It's exhausted, but for some reason it just keeps dragging its corpse forward, and it escalates. It escalates every bloomin' week. That being said, we did get a request from our resident woman for our Women's Month that Jason review X-Men 97. So assuming I set this up correctly, we're going to turn over to Jason to talk. Well, let me make sure I bring this up. And it functions.
Let's see if it works.
And
good old PowerPoint.
Yeah, PowerPoint. Yeah. All right, well, just tell me when to switch there, Jason.
Okay, so do you have 2 monitors?
No, I'm not excessively wealthy like you.
No, the thing is that I saw you click on the button to start the presentation, but what we're seeing is the PowerPoint without it hasn't gotten into presentation.
Yeah, like the edit screen.
Well, guess
I mean,
what?
we can just go with it.
Well, how about I do this? How about I do this? Wait, no.
Ooh, cropping.
There we go.
Yeah.
Professional, everybody.
Hey, when life gives you lemons, right?
You snort it.
And say,
And go to Branson, Missouri.
Branson. Try to get the smell out of your nose.
Try to get the smell out of your nose. Brought to you by Sweet Baby Inc. I wish they were a sponsor. They should sponsor next week. The problem is they're an actual legitimate company, and treating them as a sponsor may cause problemas. They may sue. Much like Black Girl Gamers is going to sue the world, which is the title of this podcast. Anyway, Senior Jason.
So, go ahead, go to the first slide.
Yay!
So I watched the 3 episodes that were available on Disney Plus, and I found that I basically was like, okay, there's 3 things. There's the good, the bad, the ugly, and so for the good, go ahead and switch to the good slide.
Oh, I thought it was on the good side.
It's still on the X-Men 97.
There
it goes. Okay, so the theme. They didn't monkey around with the theme too much from the show. There's a little bit of difference, but not. It's not so much that your song. It's still pretty much the same.
The theme is,
and so
bloom and iconic is the problem. You can't. You can't mess with it.
If they screwed with that, that would have just, it wouldn't be X-Men 97. Something different. The roster, they didn't screw with the roster either. It's Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Jubilee, Storm, Gambit, Rogue, and Bishop is in there for the first 3 episodes as part of the team. So there you go. There's that, and then there's really, for the first 3 episodes, there really isn't any intersectionality. It could be coming later. I don't know, but at least for the first 3 episodes, it's mutants, it's the X-Men, it's that kind of stuff. They're not like, oh, you're using the wrong pronouns, you're dead naming people. There's none of that. It's just
they gender swapped one character, and I heard something about Wolverine getting attraction to similar genders.
Well, that may be coming later, but that's not, so far that hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so we're basing this off of your first 3 episodes. So.
The first 3 episodes, yes. There's also Morph. So if you remember X-Men, the cartoon, Morph gets killed, and he later is resurrected and comes back. He ends up somehow back on the team, and so he's there as well. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll talk about the bad. The art style. It's very much different from the 90s cartoon. It doesn't. They're not the same. Now,
not that the 90s cartoon stylistically wasn't done on the cheap, but it seems cheaper for some reason.
Yes, and that's kind of the weird thing. It seems to me, it very much seemed like the Archer cartoon. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's sort of It's like clip
it's more.
arty.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a webtoon rather than a. It's like somebody's doing this in their basement, and it's just one guy doing
like it's
it.
made in Java.
Yeah,
Interesting.
the colors as well. The colors in the '90s cartoon were muted, and it's like they've gone hyper with the colors, and it's a real clash when you're watching it and you're remembering back to the first cartoon. Now, I do have to preface this and say I tried to rein in my bias against it. I don't know that I did that very well, but anyway. The other thing is the voice acting. They tried very hard to have the voice actors mimic as best they could the original cast from the original cartoon.
Cast back?
I'd have to look. I didn't look that up.
It'd be a bummer if like the original Cyclops is back and you're like, you don't sound like the original.
Well, Wolverine sounds similar, but not the same. Rogue sounds terrible. She's probably the most egregious example of she's trying to sound like the original Rogue, but there's just something awful about her delivery. And
Branson accent there.
Yeah, it just grates on the ears. Wolver Queen.
Well, that they reduced her butt size, believe it or not. In the original, she had a big, shapely backside, and in this one, they actually took it away, much to the lament of men across the internet. There was a bunch of angry guys. It's like, look what you did to her.
Go ahead and go to the next. Okay. The ugly. In my opinion, the ugly parts of this were the story beats. So what was there as far as plot and what they were doing, it just seemed really lazy. And one of the things, so we'll get to it in just a minute, but there was one story element that in my opinion, it should have lasted the entire series, but it lasted one episode. And
Queen, good Lord, Chance.
I'll talk about it when
they
I get
did
to it.
They did Rogue, and I'll never forgive that. See, there are some things you can't come back from.
Yeah.
Don't laugh, Silver.
Okay,
you have
so
a mile wide backside.
Thanks.
You're a Godzilla cat monster.
I am.
You sit down and it just wrecks Tokyo.
You're a horrible atrocity of nature that shouldn't be. And I get to make fun of you and pretend like I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about the Godzilla cat monster.
It looks like they got the let's see, George Buza. I'm not sure if that's how you say his name or not, but he is Beast in both the original and X-Men 97.
Okay.
But it looks like he might be the only cast member that is in both, because Rogue is Leonore Zan in the original. Oh no, she is. That's weird. She's the same one, but she sounded so terrible in X-Men 97.
I know as you age, your voice changes. I know what's her name on Family Guy that plays Meg. She has to down pitch her voice because when she first started doing the show, she was like 15 or 16.
That's true. Yeah. But it looks like they, in the original series, Jubilee was played by a woman named Allison, and they recast her. As voice actor, and it's Holly. So it's the voice actor actually matches nationality a little bit now.
Not to get distracted, but Chance says, "Man, don't knock a juicy backside. If you slap it and it doesn't slap back, it's too little." I propose to you a tentacle monster. Would that not qualify as a juicy backside? Because it could slap you back. Yeah. I think your rules for what constitutes or does not constitute a so-called juicy backside is arbitrary, and you could potentially find yourself amorous with a squid monster. Anyway, go ahead,
That's
Jason.
so weird. So it looks like they got Wolverine played by the same guy, but
apparently they all sound terrible with better microphones or something.
I don't know. The only one that sounded okay was the guy who played Beast.
And all right,
that's so weird. Anyway,
we don't need to get bogged down with we have so much news.
Yeah, keep going. Okay, so Professor X was killed by this dude, Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie was in cahoots with Bolivar Trask, who was building the Sentinel robots. So
sure, I know this is based off an actual storyline in X-Men, but
yeah, Guy Ritchie kills Professor X, but Professor X had garnered so much goodwill by the time of his death that the United States government said, "Okay, we're going to dismantle the program." They arrested Guy Ritchie, Bolivar Trask,
the horrible murder robots that kills.
Yeah, the horrible murder robots.
Only mutants.
They decide. They're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and get rid of those. And the first thing that happens is go to the next one. Okay, Scott and Jean married, and Jean is pregnant, visibly pregnant. Go to the next one. Possibly. So then you have these guys called the Friends of Humanity. They're still involved. Basically, they kidnap this mutant called Sunspot, and the X-Men go in to save him. And the Friends of Humanity have Sentinel-based weapons. They even have a Sentinel sitting on a truck that they use to try to take out the X-Men. So Scott gets upset and is like, calls the government, the government representative, and is like, "Okay, what's going on here? They had Sentinel weapons. You told me that you had dismantled the Sentinel program." And they're like, "Yeah, we did. We totally did." So going on to the next one, they end up saving him, but I don't know. It just seems like the fight that they had with the Friends of Humanity, the X-Men should have wiped the floor with them, but it was like Cyclops got his visor knocked off, and instead of just leaving his eyes closed, he took everybody out, and that's how they won the fight. After Storm had been knocked out and Rogue had been knocked out, and it's like, what is going on here with you guys? Anyway, so they decide to hunt down Bolivar Trask because they're figuring this guy is actually building a new master mold, and they do. They find him in Jean scans Guy Ritchie's mind, and they find that he's setting up in the Sahara Desert. They go over there, they find him, they have a fight with the Sentinels and destroy the Master Mold. There actually is a really cool scene where Gambit charges Wolverine's claws and then sends him flying at Master Mold, and him flying at Master Mold with his claws charged decapitates Master Mold. It's actually a pretty cool scene. But that was like the only one.
Nice.
So anyway, they find Trask. He gets arrested. They take them apart, and then go on to the next one. Jean and Scott decide that they're going to leave the X-Men because they're like, "Hey, we're having a baby. Let's have a normal life. Let's raise our kid. We'll go away from the school." I'm sitting there going, "Why would you do that? You could just stay at the school and be teachers, and everybody else goes out on missions." But whatever. But the thing is that, go to the next slide. Magneto shows up at the X Mansion. Now, the picture on the left is the original Magneto, and the picture on the right is his updated image. I don't know how I feel about the arm length gloves.
What, you don't like the First Lady of the President elbow arm length gloves?
No. So in his will, Professor X left everything to Magneto. Everything.
Yeah, just like
his money, the school, everything got left to Magneto.
I know when Gandhi passed away, he left everything to old Adolf.
So, basically, Magneto is like, I'm the big boss now. I'm in charge. And of course, Scott says, "I'm not leaving the X-Men now," because he doesn't trust Magneto. Magneto then starts going out and actually rescuing people, saving humans that he used to terrorize. He hasn't really turned over a new leaf. He's still angry, but he's like, I kind of feel this compulsion to live up to Charles's expectations of me and this legacy that he left me.
Fun fact, in the Ultimate Universe, Magneto ate people.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Magneto killed tons of people in the
Well, not
Ultimate
just killed,
Universe.
he ate people in the Ultimate Universe. His conclusion was something like humans eat cows. I'm evolved more than humans, therefore it's okay for me to do it. He decided eventually morally that being a vegetarian was better, but he did eat people.
Go on to the next. So, of course, Magneto gets put on trial. They have this opportunity to put this person who was a terrorist on trial, which does not sit well with the Friends of Humanity. The Friends of Humanity are like, "No, we got to kill this dude." So one guy,
he's an awful person. But fun fact, by the way, the writer wrote this and likened it to MAGA and January 6th, the trial for Magneto.
Yes. Because they end up storming the courtroom, and they remove Magneto's power dampener, and he and the X-Men basically. This is a time when it was like, why on earth are the X-Men having such a hard time against normal people with no powers? I mean, maybe it's like we don't really want to hurt these people too much, but seriously, it's like they're normal civilians. Why are you guys holding back on these people? But anyway,
maybe I've got a shot against Cyclops.
Yeah.
Magneto. Keep going, Jason.
They didn't bring Wolverine with them, which is probably a good idea.
He might make.
He actually stayed. He stayed with Jean, who goes into labor. So he grabs her and rushes her to the hospital. And some of the X-Men leave the courtroom because Cyclops' son is about to be born, and I want to say Rogue comes with them. I'm not entirely sure why, but comes with them. And when they get to the hospital, the doctor's like, I'm not gonna deliver a mutant baby. And so they have Rogue steal his memories so that she can be the doctor. that delivers the baby. And then, back in the courtroom, the Friends of Humanity get in. They have a rifle that will depower a mutant, but it's only got one shot. And he takes aim at Magneto, and Storm jumps in the way, and so her powers get taken away. And Magneto, basically, he goes God mode. He had been, apparently he had been holding back. He'd just been trying to protect the tribunal, but at this point he's like, no, I'm not having it. So he grabs the dude that tried to shoot him, and he grabs the tribunal and basically flies off to space. And so they're looking down at the planet, and Magneto like, I'm trying to do what wants me to do here. He's like, I'm trying to remember perspective out here, like the world is good, and I'm not down with apes. And they basically like give Magneto, yeah, trying to turn over. It made no sense. It made no
You're
sense.
cutting out
It's
a
like,
little bit on me, Jason. Hopefully the stream.
hopefully the stream is getting it. So then they go back to the X-Men and Jean Grey. Go ahead and Storm. So Storm gets depowered. Go ahead and move, go to the next one.
Must have cut out.
So, yeah, Nathan Summers is born. And he's healthy and everything. Go to the next one. And then Jean Grey actually at the X Mansion. And you're like, well, then who was the one that just gave birth to the baby if Jean Grey just showed up to the X Mansion? And that's what. So, Mr. Sinister, if you're not familiar with the comics, obsessed with Scott Summers and Jean Grey's genetics. He's convinced that if they have a baby, it will be the mutant messiah, basically. Go on to the next.
Well, it's my understanding that their child ends up being Cable, but
Yeah. Well, he's one of the possible children of Jean and... Oh, whoops. Only breaking up badly, sorry. I don't know that there's anything I can do about it.
Well, let's sum it up then, and
okay,
and not.
So they
your
let Magneto off the hook for his terrorist activities. They and Jean Grey has her baby, and then Jean Grey actually shows up at the X Mansion, a second Jean Grey, and that's when we get into the Goblin Queen thing. So it turns out the Jean Grey that showed up was the actual Jean Grey, and the one that was at the X Mansion was the Goblin Queen, Madeline Pryor, the clone of Jean Grey. And so they're not sure when the switch happened, and Madeline Pryor is convinced that she's Jean Grey, and Storm had left the X-Men because she was no longer a mutant, depowered. Which again, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, well, I'm not a mutant anymore. Guess I'd better leave. Okay. Go on to the next. Well, Wolverine is convinced that the gene they have is actually Jean, and he is able to kind of mind meld with her, and she gets her memories back. Go to the next. And then there's a Jean versus Goblin Queen fight because, nobody can take on the Goblin Queen. She's just too, except for Jean. So they have a fight. Go on to the next. And Nathan gets infected with the techno.
How come that looks like Louis Anderson?
Don't know, but you're right.
I am right.
So they basically decide, and this is, I don't understand this. So they sit down with Scott and they're like, look, there's no way we can fix Nathan. We don't have the technology. We don't have the time to fix Nathan. And so they had fixed Cable's time machine thingy. And they're like, we can send Nathan into the future where they can cure him of the techno-organic virus. And Scott's like, I can't be a party, and walks out of the room. Like, dude, it's your son. What's going on here? Anyway, Bishop...
You haven't done that to your children?
No. Bishop takes off and goes back into the future. Go to the next. And Forge shows up. He somehow finds at some biker bar and is like, hey, I want to help you get your powers back. And that's the last of the episode. The thing that I felt was like was the Goblin. They basically introduce it and resolve it in one episode. That seemed to me to be something that to resolve. I mean, that it should have been them chasing
a powerful villain, somebody that you could drag out for a while or whatever. Overall, did you enjoy it? Would you recommend it? Was it okay?
No, I didn't enjoy it. It was aggravating, to say the least, and it was just janky. The voices were, and
didn't live up to its expectations.
No, it didn't live up to expectations.
And with your mic, we finally found proof that you are, in fact, a robot.
Yeah. I just had my nanobots repairing my voice.
Maybe I should... Now let me do something dumb. Yeah, whatever. Gosh, dang it, this suck. So, really quick, I saw Ghostbusters. To give you some background, I am a massive Ghostbusters fan. I even enjoy 2, and nobody enjoys 2.
I like 2.
So, do you like 2?
Yeah.
Jason apparently enjoys Ghostbusters 2. Usually people are like, oh, Ghostbusters 2. It's not as good as the other or whatever.
It's not as good as the first one. I think the first one is better than 2, but I liked 2.
Yeah,
I own both of them.
2. Wow, you could just be a hoarder. That doesn't mean anything.
That's true.
At any rate, so I went and saw it. Really quick, a few things. There was much of a hullabaloo about the main character. I gotta do this flipping thing. All right, spoilers. Much a hullabaloo about the main character, the girl, who was the main one in the last one. Apparently has a lesbian relationship with a ghost in the movie.
So
I'm going to tell you that it's thinly veiled, but never fully said. So it's like either kiss her already or stop having longing looks between a ghost and a girl. Long story short, there are too many characters in the movie. They keep trying to give all these different disparate characters something to do. Finn Wolfhard is a waste of time. He doesn't even need to be there. His girlfriend, who's probably one of the only black people in Kentucky, shows up for some reason. So does Podcast, who's the Asian kid, who also shows up for some reason. And then you have all the old Ghostbusters who are there. They even have Walter Peck come back. there are too many characters. There's too much going on. There's too much to do. There are some redeemable things. It's like generic, like, oh, Ghostbustery stuff is happening. My biggest problem isn't, oh, well, they do that. I mean, I do have a problem with underage sexualizing children.
Yeah.
But my biggest
should.
problem isn't her in a lesbian relationship, which is thinly veiled, but they never fully state it. My biggest problem is it's bad writing and she's at fault for everything. Essentially, the whole crux of the story is the Ghostbusters are going out catching ghosts. They screw up and cause some damage, like Ghostbusters do. They're brought in, and the current mayor is Walter Peck. Walter Peck gets upset, and he goes, why is there a minor?
Why is he the mayor?
I don't know, Jason. And then he goes, why is there a 15-year-old girl working as a Ghostbuster? And they're like, well, it's a family thing. And he's like, there are no minors as firemen. There are no minor police officers. She's not allowed to work. It's child labor. And then she gets all indifferent and pissy with him, and he threatens to arrest her at one point. And then apparently off screen, she bad talks him, and then she does get arrested, which is completely outside of her character as the shy, awkward, nerdy girl of the last one. So the whole gimmick is she's not allowed to go ghostbusting. And so she ends up staying at home, being upset, running into Ghost Girl, where they form a relationship playing chess and talking and longingly staring into each other's eyes, to the point where she makes a horrible decision to so that she can be close to her by making herself a ghost to unleash a horrible thing upon the world that potentially could have killed loads of people. And at the end, she's not held accountable for any of it. And the parents just shrug and go. And she acts like a little shit in the whole movie. I'm going to tell you that. She's selfish. She's self-centered. She trash talks her mother like she's an idiot because she's not a scientist. And this is one problem I have, especially when they do intelligent people. When they present somebody as an intelligent in a film, they're like, let's say scientists, they're not an expert of everything. But for some reason, she has knowledge of quantum physics. She's a geologist. She's an engineer. She's a metallurgist. She knows scientist, smart person means you have vast knowledge about all subjects at all times. That's essentially how they present nerdy people. When, as Jason will know, and as anybody else in academia will know, people who get to the PhD level, it's essentially you have a breadth of knowledge and then you hyper focus on one thing. So having a PhD means you know a lot about one subject. They've pretty much given her magic science powers of intelligence where she knows everything about everything, and anyone who's not a scientist is a dumbass. And that's how she treats her mother, and she deserves to be slapped in the face. And that's how she treats a lot of other people. She's awful.
The thing is that...
And then she causes the problem, and at the end, when they stop it, they go, well, she saved the world. And I was like, first of all, she did save the world. Awkward Indian Pakistani guy saved the world. Second of all, she caused the problem, and there are zero consequences. So the lesson is, make horrible mistakes that potentially end the world with a horrible monster coming in to destroy all of New York, and don't feel bad about it and then not be held accountable is essentially the plot.
Yeah. So
would I recommend it? No.
That's the thing is that I watched the what is it, Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It did. Yeah. It did hearken.
We have
felt
so much news, so let's not get too bogged down. But
no. I wanted to say that it seems to have deviated wildly from what they started trying to. You know what I mean?
There are too many people. Paul Rudd should have been the center of the film. I don't like the children.
That would have
in the
been
movie.
awesome.
They're boring and dumb. Finn Wolfhard is
That
a
would've
funny
been-
looking douchey character, and I don't care. I don't care.
That
I
would
don't
have
care
been
about his
interesting.
character. I don't care about what he has to do. His whole gimmick is he goes into the attic because Slimer's up there, and basically it keeps cutting to him trying to deal with Slimer, and that's his whole story.
He should have stayed back in Kentucky with his girlfriend, and when,
It's like Kentucky or
Um,
Kansas. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
I
the girl should have been there to make the gadgets, and Paul Rudd should have been the one going out. But I wanted to say really about the way they portray intelligent in films and other media. A lot of times, it's like they in order to cover up the fact that they're terrible writers, that they don't know how to write, that they
you're
swear
cutting out a bit.
my mic is really
A connection or mic problem or whatever. You probably we'll see if your mic can't shift it to it. Just to talk about Ghostbusters while Jason deals with this really quick. I love Ghostbusters too, and for some reason, sounds better for the moment. But for some reason, a lot of people don't like Ghostbusters too. As the patriot that I am, I get a swelling of pride when the Statue of Liberty walks down the street and then beats up a building.
That is a cool. Yeah, that is a cool.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say that when they try to write,
and you're dead.
Weird. Yeah.
We don't need to dwell too much on it. Ghostbusters, yada yada yada.
Let's see if I can get through this. So when they try to write an intelligent person in a film or whatever, they make them arrogant and know-it-alls to cover up the fact that they don't know how to write an intelligent person. An intelligent person understands the limits of their intelligence. They understand what they don't know. And in point of fact, while they may know more than everybody else in the room, they don't necessarily lord it over the people. I've met a number of intelligent people over the years, and they were really nice people. I don't know where they get off maybe these people were more the the exception, and that most intelligent people. But I think what it is it's the writer is sitting there going, well, I'm intelligent, and if I knew everything, then I would act this way, rather than, hey, I'm just a normal person. I just happen to be very smart. I don't know.
I've had discussions with very smart heads of departments, and they're very nice, they're very smart, and they know a lot about their topic, but there's no arrogance, and that's what's so weird about this character coming across as arrogant and full of herself. And she's awful. She went from charming in the last one to terrible in this one. Silver, did you enjoy the last one?
Yeah, I really loved the last one. I thought they did really well with it, so it's disappointing to hear how this one turned out.
Yeah, it was a disappointment. What are you gonna do?
I don't know if my previous thought on the character and stuff came through. I was saying that Paul Rudd, like you said, Paul Rudd should have been the star. Finn's character should have stayed in wherever, and then Phoebe should have been there making the tools and stuff. With podcast being the occasional comic relief. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, well, he went through a growth spurt, and he's no longer tiny, cute Asian kid. He's now tall, teenagery-looking kid. Moving on.
Could have been comic relief.
Moving on, we got too much to talk about. I played and beat finally Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I don't know if I want to get too much into the weeds. It's something I would love to talk about with somebody who's actually beaten the game, as opposed to two people who have no idea. Or just a Final Fantasy VII conversation in general. And the problem is with how it ends, it's so spoilery. It's such a big, like a lot happens. I'm going to say tenuously, and this is going to come as a shock because I am stubbornly, most of my favorite games of all time are not remotely within the last 20 years.
Yeah.
This may be my favorite game at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to say this with an asterisk. And the reason why I say this with an asterisk is it's got a slight problem that a sequel will have. Matrix, when they made the second one, it was good or bad depending on how the next one ended. This one sets up a lot for what's going to happen. It gives you all this possibility and all of this dread and all of this whatever is going to be happening in the third one. And if they fumble the third one, it makes Rebirth worse. You know what I mean? So for the moment,
that's funny.
I'm going to give it an asterisk, but it's probably one of the greatest single player experiences of all time.
I would probably I would feel comfortable saying that they're not going to screw up the next one. I feel comfortable.
I would love to spend 3 hours discussing the ins and outs of the story, where it goes and what the potential is going to happen and the conspiracies and all. I would love to do that. Not the purpose of this podcast.
Right.
And I would be basically explaining it to people that haven't played the game. Jason at least knows something about 7, but he doesn't really know
7.
Super amount of remake or Rebirth.
No,
I'm going to say that I'm working on platinum and I'm at about 160 hours. And for a modern game, that's amazing.
That's a long time. Yeah.
That's amazing for a modern game to give you that amount of quality gameplay. And I'm going to tell you, I wasn't bored at all with any of the mini games, with any of the side quests, with any of the extra stuff. And I was constantly driven for the main story. And that's rare when you're playing a mini game and you're like, oh, I hate this. I don't want to play it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas you actually enjoyed it and you drove through it.
In the first one, the exercise mini games were annoying. And then you had that one mini game where you were defending the mountain, and that one was annoying too.
Yeah,
it's just like I want to get done with these mini games so that I can get back to playing Final Fantasy.
There are so many mini games in Rebirth, I cannot say. There's a whole card game. There's just an extensive, like you could just play the card game. Chance says the entire Final Fantasy franchise is trash. I said what I said. Well, you know.
We disown
it was
you.
brave of you to admit your,
the hitman is coming.
Your status as Satan. I observe you, Beelzebub. Oh, suck it, Chance. Moving on. Love to talk about it. That's all I'm going to say. It's a great experience. If you like Final Fantasy, you're going to love it. If you like 7... The biggest problem with 7 is the iconic story and how easy it would be to mess it up. And I kept going through my head as I was playing, how is this going to end? Where is it going to go? Because it would be cheap to change the big moment in the game. It would be cheap to have another character pass away. It would be cheap to do a lot of things. And they did it in such a way as to justify the game's existence as a whole thing, to the point where every Final Fantasy franchise game, from Crisis Core to Dirge of Cerberus to anything Final Fantasy related, like Advent Children the movie, all is referenced in this thing. They all are relevant and they all exist in this universe. Everything, even the cell phone game, has spoilers to things that are going on.
That's so funny.
It's all encompassing. It's like the Final Fantasy universe. I don't know what to tell you. Let's move on to our main event. Hey everybody, there's this thing called Black Girl Gamers. There's a long extended narrative. I don't want to get super bogged down on it, but let's start out slowly. So there's this game called Validate that was made a while back. It is seems mostly LGBTQ-ish dating sim with what seems like mostly unattractive people. That being said, I'm not here to dump on the game. It looks like trash. I'm not going to play it, but it's not for me. Clearly, it's not a game I want to play. So this game exists. That's not necessarily the subject of this discussion. I'm not here to dunk on this game. What I am here to do is discuss the company that made this game and go into a bit of depth on top of that. So the company that made this game is called Black Girl Gamers. We vaguely discussed them and referenced them last week. Here is some tweets that they made recently. A little while back. A couple years ago, actually. Hey, real talk, given the most attention to Keaton, our only white playable character, and not to the other 12 characters of color, is very heartbreaking to see. Apparently, they were quite upset that most of the people were playing the white male character when they played the game. And at its peak, it had a max of 80 people playing it, and most of them played the white male character, fascinatingly, on this LGBTQ plus game that is themed. And they're upset for people to choose what to play. And they do go on to say, when approaching media, really think about your bias when it comes to white characters versus characters of color. So now they're trying. This should tell you the hilariousness of the situation that this company.
You know, it sounds to me like what was going on was mostly white males were giving this game a try. If their max was 80 people playing the game, it was probably a bunch of white guys going, yeah, I'll give it a try. And so they were playing the white character.
Or reviewing it and making fun of it. It doesn't matter. I'm just poking fun at the game. I'm not really here to dump on the game. Where this goes is a lot deeper.
But I just wanted to say that, like, it doesn't seem to me that, and because it was a narrow audience, that's why you were getting who were you.
Well, for a company that made a very narrowly focused, niche, politically minded game and then get upset for how people play it is hilarious to me. They made it and then they're like, why is everybody playing the white guy? Anyway, where we go now is, we talked about this the other week. Silver was gone. The audio didn't work. I think I fixed it. This individual used to work for Black Girl Gamers. She moved on to work for the Marvel Black Panther game. And it's important to sort of get into the mindset of who these people are. So I'm going to play this audio.
I have a team of 21 right now for Validate. It's a pretty big team. It's a crazy big team for indie games. But who is your team? Validate has a team of mostly all people of color. We have no white people on our team. I did that because I wanted to create a safe environment. And I know the best way for an environment to be safe is to be around people who are just like me.
So literally you just said that white people are dangerous and you can only be around people that are like you. And now she's going to say that's not what I'm saying.
And I'm not saying that white people in the industry are creating unsafe environments. I'm not saying that. That is not what I'm saying. I am saying that sometimes it is hard to work with white people because they think that something made it okay, but it was really a microaggression. And no one wants to deal with that while they're trying to make a game that they love.
So the concern when this first got revealed is this person is working as one of the lead developers in the new Black Panther game. This is a quality of individuals. We've got sort of infecting media. Apparently I didn't have the video up, but everybody heard it.
Okay, good.
Here's where it starts to get deeper. Okay. Now, listening to that should give you an idea of what kind of hiring practices that company has. So a website called That Dark Place, and they deserve the credit, dug into it. Black Girl Gamers worked on as a consultant for Forspoken, much like Sweet Baby Inc. worked on a bunch of other ones. And they found that apparently Black Girl Gamers discriminates in their hiring practices.
Sounds like it.
Yes, that sounds obvious. That sounds like they only hire black people or black women with LGBTQ status or what have you. To read the article, a video game consultant organization, Black Girl Gamers, that consulted on Square Enix disastrous Forspoken. Game appears to be discriminating in their hiring practices while simultaneously claiming they are being harassed. Tweeting out, looking for black women content creators that make Dungeons and Dragons content for some potential brand work, hit us up. Ironically, no less than a month later, the organization claimed it was being harassed while not providing any evidence, and it posted on X the amount of harassment we received due to this Gamergate 2 is not surprising. Gamers that thought the industry revolved around them and their comforts are now realizing it doesn't. We've had emails, comments, and threats that what we're not going anywhere. The reason why this is being brought up and reported is because discrimination based on race is illegal. And despite the fact that you exist in a world of intersectionality where you are hyper-focused on race, it's still illegal to discriminate on race and against the law. So we go from this article reporting on what's going on with this company, and suddenly they show up and the Black Girl Gaming Company now threatens legal action against Park Place and claims they are committed to diversity and inclusion, including our non-discriminatory hiring practices. This evolves more than this. So they threatened to take legal action against what is essentially a small gaming website that reported on the potential illegal hiring practices. Now, why is this a big deal? Because they also claim that any content creators that share it and post it are also going to be sued, thereby claiming that they're going to sue practically everybody for sharing the fact that they claim that they are exclusively looking for black women gamers and discriminatory. And I would remind you in that video that you heard and not saw, because I forgot to bring it up, that she does point out, that was when she worked for Black Girl Gamers, she does point out that they have 100% black team. There are no white people on her team. None. And then they say we're exclusively hiring black people. So when somebody points out, hey, look what you're doing, and then they turn and then they practically claim that they're going to sue anybody that shares this, any content creator, any YouTuber that shares this across the internet, which sparked the outcry of thousands of videos talking about this subject on the internet in response to, hey, you're not allowed to talk about this, to, hey, everybody's going to talk. It's almost like, how dare you look? We're going to get upset. And the funny part is they say, here, let's actually read their tweet just to be more specific. We're addressing the recent allegations published on That Park Place about discriminatory hiring practices within Black Girl Gamers. These claims are false and made without prior fact-checking or verification from us or our representatives. Black Girl Gamers operates as a contracted organization that collaborates with both freelancers and online creators from all backgrounds to work on various projects, initiatives to amplify blah, blah, blah. They go on to say, let's see. Upon discovering these false and defamatory allegations, we have taken steps to obtain legal counsel and take action against the publication and journalists, as well as subsequent content creators, who have shared the false allegations about our organization. First of all, I am sharing information just to no one's going to pay attention because we don't have enough followers to matter. But
Right.
I'm sharing this information based upon these are accusations against your company, not verifiable facts. But it seems that if you have 0 white people in a majority white country, that you might purposely be discriminatory in your hiring practices. What I find curious is when you go out of your way to say, we will basically pursue legal action against any journalist and all subsequent content creators who have shared and reshared the false allegation. So what, are you going to sue the entire internet? Like, the worst thing you can do,
apparently.
This is the Streisand effect in Perfect. Like, the worst thing you can do is say, hey, don't look, because everybody's going to go, wait, what am I not supposed to look at? What am I not supposed to look at?
Yeah, seriously. That's how the internet works.
Go ahead and
the thing is that whether or not they actually guilty, we're not sitting here going, you're definitely guilty. We're just saying, look, it has been alleged that you have some unfair hiring practices. If that is not the case, we'll admit it. We're not saying, down with the guilty. We're just saying, hey, this is what has been reported. And the thing is that they're saying that, like, that these can't be verified. Well, actually, they can be verified. And even just at a casual glance at your company, the fact that you have only black women at your company, that does kind of indicate that if if I come to your company, or the next white guy or a Hispanic guy, if a guy comes to your company and you don't hire him, even though he's qualified for the position, maybe even more qualified than whoever you do end up hiring, then you do have unfair hiring practices.
Well, and
they
look,
can probably check that out.
Especially in our world, this company could have existed hiring solely black women for practically ever, and nobody would have paid attention.
Yeah.
All you need to do is we look through the resumes and then we pick the best candidate, and it happened to be a black woman. What you don't do is you go out and say, we're looking for exclusively black women to work on this project.
Yeah.
Then
when you say we're looking,
these are the type of people, and I'm not even trying to hedge my bets. Clearly, these are allegations, but I'm not even trying to go, well, we're not making any allegations. All we are is talking about how one website reported on what was going on, and you came down on it, and now you're getting the wrath of the internet, and everyone's going to pay attention to what you said. Everybody's reporting on this. Everybody's looking at what happened. The worst thing you can do is start weighing into these topics. Case in point, people start throwing kerosene on the fire. During all of this drama,
not only that,
with Black Girl Gamers and Sweet Baby Inc., we start having people throwing tweets that are causing a crap storm in their direction. Go, said what you were gonna before I move on.
Well, not only that, but because of this, what's going to happen is you're going to have people coming out of the woodwork that are going to be saying, I applied for a job at this company and they didn't hire me because I'm this ethnicity and I'm this gender. You're going to have people doing that. You're going to have people that jump on that bandwagon. Now, maybe some of those are crackpots, but you're going to find some people that are actual developers that did apply to your company because they saw a job and you passed them over because they didn't fit your profile.
Not that, so I'm going to find this really quick. I kind of interacted with this individual on Twitter, complimented them for coming forward and pointing out what had happened with Black Girl Gamers. So there's an individual on Twitter. You can find her. Her name was Vanessa, or goes by Gothics. She's at Gothics TV. I had a little interaction with her. So she came out and started talking about this. Now, the reason why she came out and started talking about this, I'm trying to find her tweet, but I can paraphrase as I'm saying it. She came out and said, hey, I worked for Black Girl Gamers, and I ended up being fired because I wasn't willing to go along with the let's hate all of the white people. So she ended up having to leave. Oh my gosh, she's posting images of Thomas Sowell. I would propose, if at all possible. Thomas Sowell's a hero of mine, by the way.
Thomas Sowell Thomas Sowell is one of those intelligent people that I talked about. If you listen to him, that guy is so down to earth and so, but he knows his stuff. He knows
one of the
his
greatest
stuff.
economists of all time.
It seems to be
let's not get off the beaten track. She did talk about, I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to talk to her, but I remember seeing a video where she recommended The Naked Communist, the book from Cleon Skousen. My father worked for Cleon Skousen as a lecturer. And so we've got his books all over, signed and everything. And she brought it up like it was this rare thing. It's like, oh, I'm fully aware of Cleon Skousen and The Naked Communist. And to quote, read one of her tweets, as a former Black Girl Gamer member, I can confidently say these people are full of crap. They do not care about diversity. They promptly kicked me out for being anti-Black, aka not making an idol out of my skin color and refusing to hate white people.
Wow.
Yeah, so there seems to be suggestive evidence that this company is not that great. Let's move on, as in the middle of all this drama with Black Girl Gamers, Sweet Baby Inc., Gamergate 2.0, whatever, we have people throwing kerosene on the fire and making things worse. Because what you want to do is start weighing in and getting attention. And I quote, I've been seeing more and more hateful Gamergate-esque opinions. I want to be clear where I stand. I won't tolerate any harassment, violence, or threats towards devs, minorities, and women in our industry in any space that I own or have control over. Hey, I agree. No threats of violence, harassment. No threats. None of that. Yeah. Totally agree.
That's disgusting. If you do that, no.
Well, right. Moving on. I don't care about your opinions and won't go in discussion with you. Okay, so you're othering them. I'm not interested in explaining to you how little you know of the workings of our industry, and I will report and block your account immediately. All right. And if by any chance you happen to be working in this industry and you're voicing said opinions, I'll screenshot you, put you on a person list, and advocate that you never work at a company I work for or associate with. This individual is one of the central figures in, where is it? He works for a company called It's Bare Knuckle, which is a company that does work very similar to Sweet Baby Inc., by the way. It was my opinion that he worked for the GDC. He may not. That being said, he garnered a lot of attention because of these comments. And now, see, the problem is with the internet, they don't forget, and they will go after you and troll you. And for good or ill, trolling is a thing. You can you can pretend it doesn't exist, but it's going to happen. There's no winning these arguments. And to go to Irina Pereira, also a game developer person in this world, just wait until they notice that none of our starting characters in our alpha build are white males. None out of 6. In the midst of all of this, would you be really making one of these tweets to grab attention? Now, the reason why this is somebody retweeting or posting an image, she completely shut down her account. And you can no longer observe her tweets because obviously this was a poor idea in the middle of all of the drama going on. Oh, but there is more. Hey, everybody. Someone in the BBC says we need a final purge of ideological opponents from the medium of gaming. In the view of the BBC gaming presenter Jules Hardy, the best way for the current discourse around Sweet Baby Inc. to resolve itself would be with a final purge of those players who are critical of the general presence of diversity, equity, and inclusion, focused on consultation companies within the video game industry. Not just to point out the problems in the comments of a final purge of people who disagree with you, especially you don't control gaming, even though you want to. Clearly, you want to. In fact, you're a minority in gaming. Why do any of this have a problem with diversity, equity, and inclusion? DEI is the enforcement of diversity, equity, inclusion. I have no problem with diversity, equity, or inclusion. Well, equity on a moral principle, I have a problem with it. I have no problem with people putting these in their games. The problem is DEI on purpose is built to forcefully create diversity, equity, inclusion, as opposed to just diversity happens to be in a game. On top of that, when you're enforcing these practices, you're making games that are not interesting to the general gaming audience, and therefore no one wants to play them. It's like Forspoken happened and everyone's like, oh, this game sucks, and no one buys it. So you got your diversity, equity, inclusion into Forspoken. You did it. You succeeded. You spent a lot of money to make a game that was terrible, and nobody played it, and it lost money. And the developer, I think the publisher, went out of business and was shut down for making that game. But you got what you wanted. And yet you want to shove out anybody who disagrees with it. You're literally attacking the fan base that would purchase your product. Yeah. That's what you're doing.
The thing that we've always tried to point out here is that diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't matter. Never has, never will. What matters is you make a good game, and the people will come and buy your game. They don't care who the main character is. They don't care. They don't care what the skin color, what the gender. They don't care about that. What they care about is having an enjoyable time playing a video game. If you give that to them, they will buy your game. They will be a fan. They will support you. If you throw that, if you come back and you're like, look, we're eliminating all white people from our game because we have to do DEI, they're going to come after you. They are going to troll you. They are going to ignore you, and they are going to pan your game. That's how this works.
Somebody defined woke as creating, basically using your ideology and cramming it into something at the expense of the quality of the product that you're making. That's an interesting way to look at it, but I don't disagree with the premise. Apparently you're going to purge people who disagree with you. Well, guess what? You're going to purge everybody within the game industry that you want to purchase your game. And then no one's going to purchase it. Dumbass Julia Hardy. Congratulations.
Go out of business.
We're going to have a purge, much like Stalin, and cast out all of the people that will prop up the industry, and then we'll watch it crash because you hate everybody that disagree with you, but you need their money. Moving on.
And you can't shut up long enough to take their money. Move on with. Good Mike.
Would you open website, please? So, and a little bit of Kotaku news from last week, if everybody remembers our conversation about Kotaku. Geo Media is struggling and recently sold Deadspin. Deadspin, if you recall, got in trouble for attacking a fan at a football game for dressing like a Native American, and he happened to be Native American.
Was it that little boy?
Yeah, and the blackface thing, but in reality, he wasn't wearing blackface. Half his face was black, half was red because of the colors of the team.
At the Chiefs game, yeah.
Yeah, and in reality, the kid is also Native American. And a lawsuit ensued where Deadspin ended up going out of basically getting hammered and got sold off by Geo Media, and everybody was fired. Well, it looks like they're going to sell The Onion. Now, what does this matter to Kotaku? Wow. The Onion is the only profitable, I guess, publisher the Geo Media owns. So if they're selling The Onion, Kotaku ain't going to last.
No, they're not.
I don't expect Kotaku survives where The Onion actually gets sold off because, hey, everybody, we're running out of money. So not a good sign for Kotaku in the upcoming future. Silver, if you feel so inclined to weigh in. I know we're weighing in a bunch of topics that you're not aware of, but feel free to...
yeah.
feel free to jump in. Moving on, in reference to media at the moment, is the media layoff phenomenon the next housing crisis? The media sector's challenges amplify shadow bank tolls on the U.S. economy and mirror. Essentially, they're calling for a bailout of the media as stuff starts to crash around us. I found this relevant.
They need to just let it fail.
Yeah, I found this relevant when we were talking about Kotaku and all these companies going down. And now apparently there's a push for financial help for the media in general.
We ticked off all of our customers and they won't pay us, and so we government.
Hey everybody, Disney drama. I'm going to try and explain this as quickly as I can in as succinct a way as I can. What, Silver?
Yay! Never ends.
It never ends. So this is a long, drawn-out discussion. I'm going to try and explain it so that everybody's on the same page. Way back at the Before Four, when Florida passed a bill that many call the Don't Say Gay bill. That's not actually what it's called. It's never called the Don't Say Gay bill. And in fact, the bill in it whatsoever doesn't say you're not allowed to say gay. Essentially what the bill said is you're not allowed to teach about sexuality and gender and whatnot to children under the age of, I want to say 13 it was. So it's not even for middle school and high school students. It's for younger aged individuals. So it got blown up as, well, you're not allowed to say gay in Florida anymore. And so you had people on the, like Whoopi Goldberg saying, well, I'm going to say gay and they can't stop me. Gay, gay, gay. And it's like, well, they didn't say you weren't allowed to say it. That's not what the bill was about. Anyway.
Plus, she probably wasn't in Florida anyway.
I don't know. Despite the misconceptions about the bill, despite the inaccuracies, the bill happened, and there was a lot of controversy around the bill, and people were upset with whether you did or did not agree with it. In the realm, I'm going to be as neutral about this as possible, but a lot of this exists because of the massive George Floyd protests and the BLM movement. And the reason why I'm saying this is there was a big trend before that, but it came to a crescendo of highly aggressive political groups making sure that corporate entities take political stances on issues. And coming out and say, well, if you don't say something, then silence is violence. If you don't say something, then you're supporting the bad thing. And let's take a hypothetical company that sells soda. You might think, why would a multi-million-dollar company cave to a very loud minority that's upset about a political issue like BLM, the George Floyd riots, and that this existed to some degree beforehand, but it came to a head with the BLM riots? Well, look at it this way. You could either send out a tweet and say, Black Lives Matter, or you could basically wither under the onslaught of constant harassment on the internet, people calling for boycotts and people getting upset with you. As a financial decision, it's cheaper and easier to just send out the tweet, shrug, and move on. Now, ideologically speaking, a lot of people might coil and say, well, you should stand up for your principles. You shouldn't let people bully you, but it's cheaper and easier and it makes them go away. This is also snowballed to a lot of companies being forced to weigh in on politics, like Skittles having LGBTQ Skittles during Pride Month, and a lot of companies basically catering to the very vocal group that has sprung up in this country in the last 10 years or so in America and worldwide as well. Now, where does this go with Disney? Well, Disney was subject to this pressure from inside influence of middle management to outside influence with political activists. And with the Don't Say Gay bill, quote unquote, Disney decided that they were going to weigh in on it, make political statements about it, and be upset about what happened. Does Disney have a right as a private company to weigh into politics and have a political stance? Sure, why not? But the problem is, back in the day, we used to assume that corporate entities, that companies, that any sort of private enterprise didn't have a political position. They simply sold product. I never had to think about Skittles and what their political position was, because it's like, well, Skittles is a byproduct. Used to think that pretty much all companies were neutral. Well, now that all companies have to weigh in on it, now that Disney has weighed in on Florida's issue, Disney is now subject to backlash. Florida didn't care much for Disney throwing shade in Florida's direction after passing a bill which they saw as protecting children. So what ends up happening? Well, Florida looks at the Disney World situation and they go, wait, you're getting a lot of benefits from Disney World. We're going to take those away. Now, what benefits were they getting from Disney World? Epcot Center was originally built as Walt Disney originally envisioned it as a actual city of tomorrow. It was supposed to be an experimental city where you developed, experimented. It was like an intellectual city of the future. That's what he envisioned it as. And that's why Florida gave him what is essentially the Walt Disney Company almost sole like governorship of kind of their own little country. They managed it, they regulated it, they had their own police force, their own fire service, they managed the roads, they controlled. They had legal right to make their own nuclear power plant. But the problem is Walt Disney died, and Disney looked at it and said, well, it's a lot cheaper to just build another park. So they just built another park as opposed to experimental city of tomorrow that Disney had envisioned. Well, what does that end up creating? It creates a park where Disney doesn't have to be subject to regulations from Florida. They don't have to follow the same rules. They don't have to be managed in the same way. They're not taxed in the same way. They are, for all intents and purposes, an independent entity in and of itself. And that saved them potentially billions of dollars. So when you become political, the other party shouldn't be expected to just sit there and go like, well, we have to take it. You are getting massive benefits legally and financially speaking from Florida. And now that you're throwing shade at Florida, Florida went, well, you don't have to have these benefits anymore. And they took it away. They went to the legislature, they passed some laws, and basically took away the authority of controlling what is essentially called Reedy Creek, the legal entity from Disney, and put it back into the hands of Florida. A bunch of weird, shady stuff happened in the meantime. I'm not going to get too into the details. There was some goofy legal effort by Disney to try and claim some weird legal loopholes There was one where they claimed they had written into it or claimed some sort of weird legal precedent where we're going to turn it over to you, but contingent on until the last child of King Charles IV dies, and then 21 years after that. Like weird legal jargon to try and maintain and manipulate their way into maintaining control. It's like, oh, sure, we lost it, but we're going to like skeeve our way into...
Like it's like the Panama or Hong Kong deal, where it's like
it's just
until 1999.
Some weird way of controlling and manipulating these things. Eventually, Disney decides they're just going to sue Florida. And they leveled a lawsuit against Florida. And guess what Florida did? They sued them back. A lot of Disney apologists ran the rings around saying Disney's brilliant. They know what they're doing. They're going to win this lawsuit. They're going to stomp Florida into the ground. This seemed less based upon judicial legal knowledge and more upon I like Disney and I want Disney to stomp Florida out because I disagree with Florida's politics. Well, all of this came crashing down, and Disney apparently realized that this wasn't going to go anywhere, and they dropped the lawsuit. And
of course they did.
Ensuing, Florida also dropped their lawsuit. So it looks like Disney will no longer be like they are not going to retain control of Reedy Creek. Like I think they already lost control, but the weird political meandering and the drama that's going on in Disney is hilarious to say the least. And the story is complex, which took me an absurd amount of time to make sure I understood it fully. And it is a funny time. It's just a great, hilarious time. Comments?
It seems inevitable that this would happen. I mean, you can't expect that Disney is just going to sit there and say, or Disney is going to be able to rule Florida without Florida having some say in the matter and being able to back up what they're trying to do. You know, Disney is just a company. Disney doesn't have the legislative power that they once had. Even if people are in the legislature.
Well, and one dumb part is why does Disney, well, when people come out of the woodwork to defend, I know they're doing it because of their ideological position. I side with Disney being upset with Florida's law, or I side with Florida being upset with Disney. I ask you one simple question. Why do you feel it necessary to defend a multi-billion-dollar corporation? Like the little guy Disney. Like, why do you feel it necessary to defend them as if they're some sort of like holy enterprise that deserves your protection? Disney deserves what they get. And they deserve what they get, not just because I might disagree with them politically. They deserve what they get because they became a political entity. They wade into politics, and they expected that the other side should just sit there and then take it, and there would be no backlash from people who disagree with them. And let's not kid ourselves, Disney has been declining. Not necessarily solely because of the Florida situation, but their movies are worse. Their box office is down year over year. I think the whole overall box office is down like 38% this year. Park attendance has declined. And Disney Plus subscribers has been going down. I mean, I know they've been turning around their financial woes recently. A lot of their streaming has been propped up by ESPN, but Disney is a damaged brand, and a damaged brand from the perspective of the right wing of this country. And whether or not you it was like, well, I hate those people. It's like they're half of the people, and whether or not you do or do not like them, alienating 50% of the country is not a financially wise decision. Why companies can't can't stay politically neutral is beyond me. Why they have to feel the necessity to weigh in on politics. And it's like, I get it. You felt like it was politically a positive move. You didn't want to anger the minority, very vocal people that are yelling at you on the internet or pressuring you inside your company, or activists pressuring you outside the company. But in the long run, you're going to alienate people. And Disney is no longer seen from the right wing of this country as a family brand or a safe brand you can send to your children. And, we're not willing to stick around anymore.
It all has to do with that pressure from the vocal minority. Like you said, they just need to ignore it, but Disney feels they can't, that they have to somehow comment, that they have to, like, hey, we're behind this oppression, or we're not behind the oppression, but we're behind those people who are struggling to overcome this oppression. And it's like, yeah, you're a company that makes cartoons. Stick to what you know.
Well, they also in Marvel and Star Wars, but let's not let Bob Iger off the hook. He has had repeated statements of politically supporting these sort of things and talking about how proud he is of what the company has done. They're just at fault, Bob Iger, for the state Disney is in as anybody else.
I mean, there's that one lady that. Go ahead.
Well, I was
going to say.
I was going to ask. Well, why don't you finish your statement? We'll get Silver in on this one.
Well, there's that one interview with the lady who's the DEI director at Disney, and was like, basically, she decided she's like, I gay up everything here. That's my whole goal.
Well, there was the head of the children's programming that said that they had a not so secret gay agenda.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. Her.
Well, and you might disagree, you might agree with her, but once again, you can make your company political and then alienate a vast majority of the investors, of people who would buy something.
Oh, yeah.
Silver, what's your overall impression of what's going on with Disney? Are you a fan? What do you think about this drama?
I agree with both of you. They should stay away from politics. Again, it's a kid-centralized company, or should be. They're turning it into something else, which is just overall wrong. Getting involved with all the politics. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, I think they do have an ideological agenda, and I think they are purposely like doing this. I think at its core, whether or not the people at the head know what's going on, or everybody involved with the company going on, I think they do have goals, and they want to transform the culture. And I think there are people with intent behind a lot of these practices. But go on and elaborate. I've been talking too much.
Well, I was going to say the Disney turning political and, a bunch of people not supporting them anymore because of it. It reminds me of the whole, that beer company, the Budweiser.
Yeah.
Yeah, it heavily reminds me of that. They lost so many sales when they turned political, and it's the same thing happening with Disney.
Well, they went from the number one beer company in America to number 3, I think.
Yikes. That is a huge drop.
It's a drop. I think number 1 is a Mexican beer now. I don't remember. It's either Coors or this Mexican one. At any rate, when you become political, you get to be treated political. If you stay neutral, then we'll treat you neutrally. I don't know why companies feel the necessity to do this, but well, in terms of what's going on with Disney, why don't we talk about how things are going on with streaming? Hey, everybody, Variety has done a peak TV autopsy, and they're finding that streamers grossly overspent on original content. Surprise, surprise. I think the streaming paradigm, if you will, the streaming model is not sustainable. And this will explain it. The conventional wisdom of the peak TV era held not only that content was king, but that content was everything. Pour money into original series, churn out as many high quality, high budget titles as possible, and subscribers would surely follow. That strategy, of course, has long since been exposed as a fallacy, with the streaming wars now effectively concluded in defeat for all but Netflix. But new insight into viewership data from the year of TV's highest peak is staggering illustration of just how poorly these content investments paid off. Data obtained by Variety VIP Plus from Luminate's new streaming viewership product shows that in 2022, a year when streaming video on demand platforms released an all-time high of nearly 1,000 original series, the overwhelming majority of viewing time was claimed by just a handful. Indeed, on all of the major US-based streaming video on demand services except Netflix, the top 20 most watched TV seasons in 2022 accounted for more than 80% of original series viewing. So to look at this, this chart actually gives you an idea of what they're talking about. The red is the top 20 shows on that network, and the black is the rest. So this tells you people are watching a handful of shows over and over again, and that spending a lot of money for a lot of different shows for a big breadth, a spam of content did not pay off. Not only that, but if we recall the article, it was a week or two ago, where apparently the majority of people are watching older content as opposed to newer. So spending huge amounts of money on new content seems to not have been a wise business model for streaming services. And I don't think a lot of streaming services are going to survive. Do you?
No. The thing is that I've said this before. Netflix came out and they showed the world that you could build a streaming service and it could be profitable. And then, like everything that happens in the world of business, everybody thinks, oh, we need to do that too, and jumps on the bandwagon. Then you get the saturation. And it's come to the point where the content that they're paying huge sums of money to create are questionable. The quality of that content is so questionable that people are defaulting back to what they know. You know, older shows. The quality of that old.
Well, there was a time.
Quality of the older show has been proven,
Yeah.
and so they go back to watch that old. They know it's good.
Well, there was a time on Netflix where it was something like 80% of viewers watched what amounted to 3 shows. It was like Seinfeld, Friends, and The Office.
Yeah.
But for some, obviously, they spent a lot of money on high budget shows, was not financially viable. We've got more data and more evidence to prove it. Even at peak, no one was watching the new content that they were producing. Which brings us to
that was one of the hang-ups I had with X-Men 97. It's like the track record of shows, the new stuff has been so poor lately that I was pretty sure that that's what I was get was a crap show. And I would much rather watch.
Well, this brings us to an article from Deadline. Hollywood contraction, how fewer jobs and the threat of another strike is pushing BTL workers to the brink. Apparently, fewer and fewer content is being produced, and fewer people are having work. And a lot of that was affected by the strike. Surprise, surprise, when you go on strike for a while, everything dies and then goes down, and then it's hard to reboot.
People realize that they don't actually need you.
Well, and a lot of people are now out of work.
Yeah.
Add on top of that Hollywood is in a decline. And it should be stated and pointed out, despite the success, so to speak, of the actors and the writers in the Hollywood strike, they might have gotten paid more, but when less content is produced, less people are working. So was it that good an idea? Huh? I hate Hollywood. Anyway. What, Silver? It's terrible.
No, it is terrible. I agree.
Talking about streaming having problems, it looks like Paramount Global's debt rating is downgraded to junk levels, and they are likely going to sell off some of their IPs. Also, it should be pointed out that Paramount has canceled a bunch of their cartoons.
Wow.
Yep. I would not be surprised if Paramount does not survive. It seems like they might be the first to go. A little bit of gaming news as we've dragged ourselves through this. So apparently, the gaming industry is in decline. To quote, the math on making a game has definitely changed, according to Phil Spencer, the CEO of Microsoft, of gaming at Microsoft. Polygon spoke with Spencer during the annual Game Developers Conference. You know that conference where everybody went out into the park? Well, a huge portion went out to the park and then screamed about Gamergate. Anyway, and though the conversation ranged from the possibility of handheld consoles to the trouble with closed platforms, one theme is inescapable. What the hell is going on with the games industry, and how will video game makers and publishers, Xbox included, get out of it? Spencer's views point to a collision of rising budgets, diversifying business models, and the exceptional financial risk now required to meet audience expectations of a AAA release. This seems like a similar problem that we have in Hollywood, where we've created a system where you have to have mega conglomerate, massive, big budget movies that are $150, $200, $300 million. And it's like, what happened to the cheaper, more successful, less financially risky? Because it's like, you make movies that expensive, they have to be making $7, $8, $9, $1 billion to be justifiable. And if those movies don't do well, they potentially collapse the company. And I imagine it's the same thing with game developers, which are moving left wing and having quote unquote woke issues with the Sweet Baby Inc. and the Black Girl Gamers and whatnot. Now that all of this is being exposed, is that there's a behind the scenes effort to influence and to quote Sweet Baby Inc. as much people want to make them out to be, well, they're just an advisory board. They actually said you should go to your heads and your developers and bully them and threaten them and say, this will cause problems if you don't bring in outside DEI hires. They know what they're doing. It's a grift. It's a ploy.
Yeah.
It's a grift. But I don't, things are getting too expensive. Prices going up, and it's becoming a snowball effect of you have to spend more and more money to make money. And I agree. It's not a lasting, long-term proposition. Movies need to be cheaper and games need to be cheaper. They don't need to be these massive, huge, earth-shattering games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Even though I love
back in the day, back in like Hollywood's golden age, studios were having movies come out one after another. They had them coming out like it would not be unheard of for an actor to like release 10 movies in a year, because they were built, they were short shoots, they were cheaply made, and you still got some quality movies out of it. You know, they just had a completely different business model back in the day, and the actors weren't being paid exorbitant sums of money for their time and effort. They were actually being paid. They were being paid well. Don't get me wrong. They just weren't being paid, so many millions of dollars to do one movie that year.
Well,
they actually
did have Ross likes to point out we did have a movie bubble that blew in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then a crash. And that's not unheard of that it could happen again.
Yep.
Goodness. 10, 11 minutes, about 10 minutes. And we'll close this out. I've been ranting and raving this whole time, and Jason's been having mic issues. And for the unaware observer, we do have Silver chained up in the back and unallowed to speak about anything that we disagree with, but I will unleash her. Silver, talk about something you care about or know things about. Go. Wait. We're going to call this Silver's Corner.
Oh, it's been so long.
All right, what do you got for us? Comments on today, subjects you'd like to talk about, something you're interested in.
Well, this is completely unexpected, but
well, this
is
if anything, we are unexpected, Silver.
So I've noticed a trend, and I'd like to get both of your answers to this question. On this trend I've been seeing, there's been a lot of women, usually on TikTok or like YouTube Shorts or something, filming themselves saying, I just saw something where I realized that the only time men are ever given flowers is at their funerals. And so they'll film themselves giving flowers to like their young son or their husband or something. So I guess I'll ask you, do you really want flowers?
No.
I didn't think so.
Well, this is getting into like intergender sort of relations and how what we value and how we interact with stuff. And one thing I've railed against before is that, and this happens with both men and women, but women look at men and think, I know what I want, I'm going to give him what I would want. But the thing is, men don't want what women want. So when a woman goes, well, men never get flowers. I know I would like some nice flowers. So I'm going to give some guys some flowers. And the guy's like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with these flowers. That's because women project what they want onto men, and they think men want the same thing. And we don't.
I had a friend once who gave me a flower, and I held it in my hand, and it wasn't romantic. She was just a friend. I looked at her and said, what am I supposed to do with this?
Precisely.
And she laughed. And like later, it was my birthday like a month later, and she gave me a card with flowers on them, and this is flowers you can keep, kind of thing. Because it was a birthday card that had the flowers on the front, and so at that point it was like, here's kind of an in joke with us where you've got paper flowers now, and these ones are you don't. It's not like you have to find a vase and water and all that other stuff. It's like you can just keep these. Like,
Well,
so yeah, I don't care to get flowers. I've gotten flowers. People have given them to me, but it's like I'd much rather give flowers to my wife than get them.
Well, there's cultural, romantic, affectionate implications. They're pretty, blah blah blah. But men don't really like. Most guys aren't going out and going, I would like to have a vase full of flowers. I was given flowers once in my lifetime from my ex. She gave me a bouquet of flowers in a little vase, and I dealt with it as poor as anyone could possibly deal with it. I was like, oh, well, what am I supposed to do with this? She's like, well, you just you keep it and and enjoy it. And I was like, oh, all right. So I just kind of, my goal was I'm going to sit it on the desk for as long as possible until it seemed like appropriate that I had to get rid of it. Because I literally cared nothing about the flowers. I mean, they're not wrong that men are often looked over when it comes to affection. That's not incorrect. But a lot of the expectations that are given to men are imposed upon them. I saw a video the other day when they were talking about expectations of men to be heroic and strong and to defend women, and when men don't live up to those things, when they're seen as vulnerable or weak or pathetic, it's a devalue of men. And women talked about how it's unfortunate that men can't be vulnerable. And the problem is that standard is imposed upon them by women. And the reason being is when men are vulnerable, women see them as lesser. So men don't be vulnerable in front of you. It's looked down upon. It is. And so when you ask, why can't men open up? Why can't they be vulnerable? Because when they are, you see them as pathetic. These standards are imposed upon them by women, more or less. Do you disagree, Silver, this being your segment?
With all that stuff you said, no, I don't disagree. You can definitely see it amongst, especially like couples and stuff. But I figured I'd ask that question because I saw that went, I'm pretty sure they don't want flowers. And I went and I asked my dad and my brother one day, I'm like, how would you feel if one day I just randomly gave you flowers? And they're like, I wouldn't know what to do with it. And I'm like, that's what I thought. So. I don't know. So there's been so many videos online of women doing that, and I can only imagine what's going through like her husband's head or something, going like, is this a hint? Do you want me to get you flowers, or what's happening?
That's exactly what the men are thinking. They're thinking, I haven't gotten flowers for my wife in a while. I wonder if this is her hint to me. That's exactly what's going on.
Or
there's some secret hungry hippos plan going on here, and I don't understand.
Yeah. There was one of like this mother giving, I don't know how old her son was, like a toddler, must have been like 2 years old or something. And she's giving a big bouquet of flowers to this toddler.
Why would you do that? That's so dumb.
I know, and I'm like, what?
A toddler knows what to do with flowers.
I know. I'm like, you don't even give like baby girls flowers. I've never seen that done, at least. You could say like, oh, they're to you, but you don't give them directly. I've never seen that. I've never been given flowers as a toddler. It doesn't make sense. They're a toddler. And I'm like, that kid's gonna eat them. I don't know.
Exactly. The kid's gonna think, oh, this is food, and try to stuff them in their mouth. That's so dumb.
Yeah.
This seems like they're trying to challenge some sort of cultural norm, maybe. Where they're trying to go, let's give men flowers. And it's like there's a reason why women like flowers. See, it's not that men dislike them, it's just women like them. And so that's why we give it to women, because women like them. Men are indifferent or don't care.
And there is something to be said about the cultural conditioning where, because we don't get flowers, we don't care about flowers, and maybe if we got them more, maybe we would care about them. The fact that my friend gave me a gift of a flower, that was nice of her, and I appreciated that, but I didn't know what to do with the flower. You know what I mean? I didn't, and it was more the sentiment of the gift than the actual gift itself, because I don't care about flowers.
Well, not to get I saw this TikTok that somebody posted, and they were this woman was explaining to men why the relationships fell apart. And this sort of explains why women and men think so differently. So this woman was basically going through this explanation as to why your girlfriend broke up with you. And she gave an example of, so your girlfriend, maybe she asks you, she wants to be complimented more. And you agree and you go, okay, I'll compliment you more. And then maybe you do it for a little bit and you forget. And then she reminds you and you go, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. And you do a little bit and forget. And by the third time she asks you, she's already broken up with you. And the reason being that if she has to keep reminding you, then you don't care enough about it. And then she starts to see all of these different moments in your relationship where you don't care enough about the relationship. You're not putting enough effort. When I ask you multiple times and you decide not to do it, and clearly you don't care enough about the two of us. So I've created this whole confluence and like complex structure of reasoning, and every little thing reinforces this idea and justifies it. And even if you're still together, in her mind, she no longer cares about you or sees you as a couple. I guarantee you that guy thinks it's not that big a deal and kind of forgot. That's all that happened on his end. But to her, it was this dramatic, complex series of events that created this lattice work of justification as to why he doesn't care enough about the relationship. He doesn't put in enough effort. And I guarantee you the guy was like, I just forgot. I don't know. Like, and women think that men think in the same way they do, that there's this complex series of like, I'm not going to do this because I'm going to send her a message. He's not thinking about that. He just forgot.
No.
And
The thing is
go ahead.
The thing is that men and women, because of the different ways we communicate, that's the problem. It's not the fact that, necessarily that we don't care. It's the whole flowers thing. It's like women like flowers and they want flowers. Men could care less, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I don't care about flowers. Flowers are nice. They brighten up the place. They smell nice. I can think that rationally, but I just don't care about flowers. And so when you have that whole different mindset, that's when those miscommunications.
Silver, what did you think about the TikTok?
Yeah, I thought it was stupid because I immediately was like, I know exactly how like my dad and brother are gonna respond if I ask them the same question. They're not gonna care. I mean, like you said with your friend Jason of getting flowers, like it was nice to get a gift. My dad was given flowers by our elderly neighbor who's like 94. He was given flowers for when his mom, my grandma, died.
Right.
So, and that was a nice thing. Our grandmother. Sorry.
You don't have soul play. She was my grandmother longer than she was your grandmother.
She raised me like a mother. Anyway. So he gave my dad flowers after finding out that she had passed away, and that was like a nice thing, and that was probably the only time, like a scenario that would be, you'd want flowers in that moment. Like, it's a thoughtful gift.
But the other thing in that situation, you can totally go take those and put them on the grave.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
see. Here's Jason. Here's Jason doing the utilitarian, functional. Hey, thanks for the flowers thing. Look, if you want to show appreciation to a guy, you tell them how much you appreciate them. You don't have to buy them little gifts. That's what you would do with the girl. Guys don't need maintenance. If you go up to a guy and you say, I appreciate you, he will think for like a year, she appreciates me. If you tell a girl I appreciate you, you got to do that more, like a few times a week, to maintain the idea that you appreciate her in her mind.
Brett, do you appreciate me?
No. You're like my sister who I abuse, and I don't feel bad about doing it.
Good to know you care.
See, that's male caring though. The ribbing and the poking fun at each other. That's male affection.
Yeah, I have to remind myself sometimes. I'm like, that's how guys basically show affection for each other.
And we've essentially infected you and masculinized you as you being part of the male group for so long.
If a guy doesn't care,
and Jason Casals,
if a guy doesn't care about you at all, he's ignoring you. If a guy is teasing you, he likes you.
Yeah, if he doesn't like you, if he doesn't like you, he'll ignore you. Then you know he hates you. If he doesn't say anything, or he's annoyed. If he talks to you and pokes fun at you, and why would we poke fun at you and then you'd go home and cry in your huge pillow?
My gargantuan pillow.
Were you taking it personally?
Hurt on the inside.
Is there a theoretical occasion where you took something said personally? Because it would have been for me.
I can't think of anything recently, but definitely not from you guys. I used to have there was this sort of guy friend in like a group of friends I had early high school, and when he'd do things I thought he was making fun of me, but then I came to realize through hanging out with you guys that I'm like, oh, that's just how he shows that, like, yeah, he's friends with us. And
yeah,
so
you're
like,
socially
okay,
on a friend level. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've never been offended by anything you guys say. I kind of understood.
Well, and
on,
it depends.
Like, guys are friends.
It also depends on tone. It is possible to have a tone of maliciousness when making fun of somebody from men.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's more ribbing. I think at one point I poked fun at you, and then you had like depressing comment where you were like, "Yeah, I am pretty terrible," and I was like, "I will punch you if you say that again." You're like, "What?" And I was like, "No, I can make fun of you. You can't make fun of you."
Oh, it was something like, what'd you say? It was something like sarcastically saying, like, "Oh yeah, you're ugly." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I try not to be."
Yeah, it was something sarcastically about your looks, and you're like, "Well, I do my best every day." And I was like, "Oh my god."
No, I
well,
definitely was not being serious, but I remember that. I remember that. I was like, I'm just gonna respond this way to make him feel bad.
Oh my god. And then I went and cried in my huge pillow. and loaded my head grew 3 times that day.
Not your heart. Your head. My ego grew 3 times that day.
I make fun of you to prop myself up to make myself feel like a bigger man. I push you down to lift myself up.
I'm gonna create a Grinch-style storybook of you. I'm like, in that day, Rhett's head grew 3 times that day.
Oh, my ego. Oh. It's too much. This was good time. Despite the massive audio problems, Jason might need to look into figuring that out.
Yeah, this is so weird that it, we've done 8 podcasts, and this is the first time the mic is so awful. It might be a short in the cord, because I found when I jiggle it, the mic seems to come back. So
internet mic quality, it's one of those two. Hey, guess who has a really good mic? Silver.
Yes.
Are you on your PC this time?
Yes, I am.
Oh. It works better.
So fancy. It's more comfortable, definitely, other than a stupid laptop.
Rock on.
Well,
I feel like a good time hanging out with everybody. We had a dandy of a podcast. I spent a lot of time screaming at the mic, and then we talked about things like men and women. It was a jolly old time. What? We appreciate anybody who's come along to listen, and those who will listen in the future. Hopefully they don't start the podcast and then abandon it 30 minutes in because Jason, it just maybe you shouldn't have
Just
led.
me.
Maybe you shouldn't have led the discussion in the beginning. That being said, maybe we should have maybe we should have a Final Fantasy discussion at some point. I'm hoping Silver can get past some of the games she's playing and force her to play Remake, so we could talk about Remake.
I hope I can get past some of the school I'm doing.
No school.
I know.
Play video games. Eventually become a degenerate. Get on fentanyl. Die of overdose. Oh. I've laid out your 5-year plan.
My 5-year plan.
Your
go to school,
plans.
Get out, get on fentanyl, die. Sounds great.
It's good to have goals. It's good to have goals. Well, Jason, anything to leave with? What you're up to? That sort of thing.
Delayed gratification.
I'm not going to be here next week. Going out of town, so.
Well, if it's just me and Silver, good Lord. Fear. Be afraid, Internet. Be afraid. Silver. More Shul.
More Shul. Finals coming up.
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. Yes, Elden Ring. Back into Elden Ring.
Yeah.
I'm having more fun with it. Going nuts.
Well, you bailed a bit early, and some people consider it one of the best Souls-likes ever. I would disagree, especially when you've hit Lies of P.
Oh, yes. I guess I like more of the set out levels than the open world in a Dark Souls setting. That's just me.
A little bit more Bloodborne-y, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though.
But we're going to get out of here, and I'm going to have the last word. Bye, everybody.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DGPodcast or on Instagram at DistractedGamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.